So before I get started, maybe just a quick introduction. My name is Nicola Redelinghuys, quite close, and I lead the energy transition, utilities and natural resources sector for Capgemini and ANZ. It's quite a mouthful, and I think for today we'll focus on the NR piece, the natural resources piece. My career so far has been in two parts. The first 15 years or so were in industry with a global oil and gas major in various technical, digital type roles. There we go, thank you. In the US, in the UK, and also in South Africa, as you can tell from the accent. And often I was on the receiving end of digital transformations and bringing those into the business. For the past 8 years or so, I've been on the consulting side, providing services to clients, mostly in Australia and New Zealand. Like I said, in my career, I've always somehow been involved with digital transformation, be it at the start where I was on the receiving end helping our businesses adopt these changes, and now as a consultant doing the same thing for our clients. But as a result, I've seen over the years what works well and more importantly what doesn't work well as it relates to organizations achieving the outcomes that they seek from these investments. Just briefly on Capgemini, we're a global leader in consulting, in digital transformation and technology, and as well also engineering services with unrivaled industry experience. We enable our clients to design and to build tomorrow's businesses and make the most of the opportunities that come with technology and digital transformation. Let me take you back in time for a second. Oh, hold on. There we go. I'm sure you recognize the saying, change is the only constant. So Heraclitus coined that phrase in the 6th century BC. So I think at the time he was being deeply philosophical, but it's probably more relevant today than at any other time in history. We're in an era where disruption is the new normal, and the pace is only increasing. I think some of the presentations we've heard today makes that starkly clear to us. So whether it's the adoption of new technologies or shifts in markets, I think that's quite prevalent in mining at the moment, or the evolution of organizational culture, the capacity of organizations to navigate these changes and lead the charge is what sets them apart. If we look at just the changes in mining itself, I mean, we literally just spoke about space and the impact of that on mining. But if we go back 100 years when coal was first discovered in Victoria to where we are today, it just really reminds us again the change that's upon us. You'll hear at IMARC this year, you'll hear about topics related to the next chapters in our industry, right? Specifically AI and digital transformations in this stream. It's all happening at once. There's a lot to get through, and we need people, the people in our organizations, to drive and adopt these changes. So that's what I'll cover today, is how people are the key to adoption and to deliver the value and the outcomes that organizations seek by making these investments. So let's talk a little bit about change and what triggers it. So there are four triggers that can lead to change. And I've listed a few examples in there, but maybe let's just talk about the ones that are very relevant to this industry at the moment. So from an organization perspective, we know there's a lot of M&A going on in the market. We see organizations and mining companies wanting to invest in things like copper or lithium, new critical minerals for the energy transition. So that's prevalent, and that has a huge impact on the organizations and the people in the organizations. Digital transformation under the technology stream, that's what we're talking about here today. It's happening all the time. Just think of something, I guess, in the context of what we've heard today, quite simple, which is ERP transformations. They're happening all over our industry. Global transformations impact not only to people working at HQ, but effectively people operating at site level as well. New business processes that, as we automate and optimize to be more efficient and be more cost effective, there's a huge impact to the way people do their day-to-day jobs. And then lastly, but definitely not least, AI, the massive impact that's having on how people do their day-to-day job. So why are people so critical? I mean, let's look at some stats. These are sector agnostic and global stats, but I think all of us would probably agree that in the past 3 years or so, no matter the organization that we form a part of, we've probably been through about 5 big transformations on average, be that technology transformations, organizational transformations, but probably 5 of those over the past 3 years. That's a lot. If you think about the fact that we need people who manage people to help drive that change, and if they're not equipped and capable of helping their teams adopt the change, those transformation programs will be in trouble. 62% of people surveyed, and I'm sure if we did a survey here now, we'd get to the same result, believe that culture change is the biggest inhibitor or stumbling block or hurdle to get to success. So people not adopting and adapting to the change and embracing the change that comes. And I think the last stat is really, really critical. Basically, organizations who do change management well, who help their people adopt, are 6 times more likely to be successful and reach the outcomes that they intended to reach. I mean, that's massive, right? If you think about some of the changes that you all have been through lately. At the bottom, an even more alarming stat, and this is a US-based stat, for every $1 billion invested in a technology program of work or a digital program of work, about 122 million is wasted, or spend is wasted, because of the 4 factors on the right. And 3 of those are all about change management. Lack of clear goals. There's no vision. People don't understand why they're doing what they're doing. The stakeholder engagement is inadequate, and stakeholders, not only end users, but the broader organization, and poor communication. Those 3 things directly relate to change management and have a significant negative impact on the outcome and the spend. All right. So now we all know what change management is. We think we know what change management is. Some people might think it's training or it's communication. It's obviously a lot more than that. And I'll just read to you the official meaning or the definition of change management. It's the process of managing organizational change, so the people and the process and the team aspect of it involves structured approaches to prepare and support individuals, teams, and leaders. And the goal is to move from the current state to the future state using coordinated methods and tools. So I think everybody would agree that that's probably an accurate definition. But I think what will vary is our experiences of how well that landed, how did that impact the outcome. So some key factors on why people are at the center and things that we need to consider. They have to be central to the journey from the beginning. We have to focus on behaviors. We are actively asking people to change their behaviors, and we have to understand which are the key behaviors, which are the high impact behaviors, and address those effectively. We have to make sure people understand the how and the why and the impact that it will have on their day-to-day. So if we look at 4 strategies that we employ when we do change management to make sure people are at the center. The first one is that a change should be persona-driven. Now, what that basically means is that for every user of the new application, to make sure that we understand their persona, what do they do on a day-to-day basis, what does their job and what processes do they follow on a day-to-day basis. Select the right set, the ones that are important to them to conduct their jobs, uncover the moments that matter to them, and then build a personalized change journey map based on those personas, so that the right people are trained in the right way, in the right setting, for example, that they get the communications they get is done in the right way. If you're an operator at site, you might not be checking your email on a daily basis, so you might miss communication that way. So we have to find alternative ways to communicate to them. The next one is adaptive. So this is really all about, as we go through a program of change, and consider for a moment that some of these digital transformations can take 12, 18 months, 24 months. So it's a long journey. And through that journey, we've got to measure and understand how well the change program is going, so that we can address challenges as they happen and not wait to the end. So you mitigate risks by handling issues and areas of resistance and behavior resistance when it happens, not at the end of the program. So that's absolutely critical. Integrated. So that's all about what's in it for me? People need to understand that early on. For them to buy in and understand their role and the benefits for them to their job, they've got to understand that, what's in it for me really early on in the journey. And then instilling a change mindset, being receptive to change. I think, many of us can relate to the fact that you do certain things in your life in a very specific way for years, and if somebody comes to you and tells you to change that way of doing your job, a job that you might have been doing for 20 years, and you think, there's only one way to do it, and it's the way that I'm doing it now. For somebody to accept that things are going to change is not as easy as sending a communication or doing a piece of training. They really have to buy into why should I change and what's in it for me and how will my job become better because of it. The last one is leader-led. I think as change management has as a practice has evolved over years, I think this concept of leader-led change has really matured. So that's really the concept of having frontline leaders, so supervisors on site, again as an example, being able, having the tools and the capability to help their teams adopt a change. That's absolutely critical. If you think about it, if you're working on the front line, who's going to influence you best to adopt a change? The person that you work with on a day-to-day basis, or is it somebody from head office sending you a communication or coming to site once in a blue moon to tell you how a digital project is going to change your life and make it better? So it's absolutely critical that those supervisors have the tools to help their teams to adopt. Change champions, for me personally, is one of the most critical roles to play in a big program like that. These are folks who work with their teams in a team, who are highly influential, who know, who understand the vision and who accept that vision and can help support the teams as they go. They typically also will be the trainers, so the folks training end users. They might be the super users in the long run, but they're the ones that really will champion this change and be the sort of beacon of light for the teams around them. In my mind, those two on the right-hand side, the leader-led change, is probably the most critical factor for a successful change program. So this is a bit of a checklist, but it really just encapsulates what I've been saying. What does good change management look like? There's a whole list on the right, but just to maybe touch on a few of them. Leadership, that's the start. Leadership has to understand why they're doing it and have a very clear and clearly articulated vision to share with a broader organization. If your leadership's not clear on why this is happening and what the investment means and what the benefits will be, and can clearly articulate that to the workforce, how can we expect the workforce to understand why they're doing it? Change management begins before the project starts. So that visioning piece, the communication from leadership, starts before the project actually gets going, and that's absolutely critical. We've got to put people at the center, even from a design perspective. Like I said before, when you design the personas, you pick the personas that are most relevant. That is, you understand which those are because you're engaging with people who will be affected. Start early. That I can't say that enough. Often change management is an afterthought, something that happens at the end. It might be the training that happens just before go live. It has to start at the beginning of a project. The planning, the engagement with stakeholders, the stakeholder planning, communication planning has to start really early. So that's a shift left approach where we do change management a lot earlier than we used to in the past. Hybrid teams, that's another critical factor. The older model of consultants coming to your organization and doing change to you, those days are ending. It's now becoming a hybrid model where we will bring the tools, the methods, the experience, and we then depend and work with the organization's team to who know the people, who have the relationships, who know their business, and we work together as a hybrid team to manage change. It's absolutely critical, and that supports the buy-in from the beginning. Successful change management leaves something behind. It leaves behind skills and methods and processes so that an organization can continue down the change journey post go live. Typically, you might have a go live date in a digital transformation. That's not the end of the journey. That is just a step in a journey that will continue over time for that system, that tool, that product. And then upskilling people to be capable and to be resilient for ongoing changes that will come. So that's a bit of a checklist. Okay, so this one. So what are some of the common pitfalls, right? So we've spoken about how to do it well, why people are so important, but let's just look at investing in change. So I won't go through the whole diagram, but maybe let's start on the left-hand side, sort of look at the two sides of the equation. On the one hand, you might invest quite sort of make a smaller investment in change management, and your outcome will be that people might be trained, and they might know when the go-live date is, when this new system will arrive. That will be what the outcome will be. So low investment, basic outcome. On the right-hand side, you have an organization including end users, so not just all stakeholders, including the end users, who not only understand how to use the new tool, but they understand why they need to use it and what's in it for them. There's a common understanding of the vision, of the benefits of the transformation. Resistance that might have happened earlier in the life cycle of the project has been dealt with. So that resistance and that barrier to implementation is removed. And the culture change, the change that this new solution will bring, is embedded and can be sustained. The frontline leaders that I spoke about earlier, those leader-led individuals, have the capability to drive the change within their teams, and the change champions are embedded in the teams, and they are sought out by the rest of the team. So that's what you get on the other side of the equation if you invest heavily in a change program. And then obviously there's somewhere in the middle as well. If I talk about the same topic in a slightly different way, I'll use an example of a project that spent about 20% on change management. So the rule of thumb typically is the change component of a program should be about 12 to 20% of the total project value. So in this example, the success measure of this project was 100% adoption. So everybody's happy to use the new tool and they use it in the right way. The project's delivered on time and on budget. An 18-month project, $2 million budget, of which 20%, so 400K was spent on change management. That scenario, it played out where the project achieved its goals, and the cost per user was about $500 to spend on that they've spent on change management to ensure that the tool is used effectively on day one. Where that didn't happen, where that 20% was not spent, the impact was the project was delayed by 12 months. And with that delay comes increased costs, and in total an increased cost of an extra $1 million, 18 months delay, and your cost per user went up to $750. So just a simple illustration of spending enough upfront on a change management program as part of a digital transformation reaps benefits in the long terms. And the risk of not doing it will increase cost and timeline and adoption down the track. So that's just a simple example of how that could pan out. All right, so just some key takeaways, some gold nuggets as we move on to the next presentation. So start early, like I said, start early with a very clear vision and a people-centered focus. Invest in hybrid teams. It's absolutely critical. That's how you leave behind capability, you leave behind tools, you leave behind people who know how to manage change, because like we said at the start, it's constant. It's not going to, and that's not going to change for a while. Upskill the workforce for long-term success. Be clear on the value and how you'll measure the value of the program, and allocate sufficient resources to change management. Like we said, benchmark is 12 to 20%, and you can see what happens if you don't go down that route. All right, I think that's it. So there we go. So join us. Our booth is right outside. Please join us if you can. And that's it. Thank you very much.